Ben Pearson with a new movie that's come out, and Ben, tell us what's going on.
Well, Kabul24 is a project that I've been working on for 6 years, and it's the story of the 8 Western aid workers that were captured by the Taliban before 9/11. And not only is the story about them, but it's about the Shelter Now workers that were working for the organization at the time. There were 16 Muslims as well, so it wasn't just the 8 Western aid workers. It was 16 of their Muslim employees for the organization too, and it's about their 105 days in captivity, 4 prisons, constant threat of death every day, and how they made it out.
So we're at 8th Day Books here in Wichita. You're doing a book signing tonight.
I am, yeah.
So you've got the book.
I've got the book.
And then you're doing the Tallgrass Film Festival, and they're showing the film several times here.
Yeah.
Someone was telling me that this is the first time they think that a film with any type of Christian base has been shown at Tallgrass. I don't know if that's true or not. Do you have any information?
I heard mention of that today. Somebody said they thought it was the first something faith-oriented, that had been shown. So
it had some interesting collaboration with the movie. I know Michael W. Smith is one of the producers.
He's the producer. Yeah. Originally I had funding. What funding I thought I had in place went away, and I was at that time I lost funding right before I did principal photography on The Second Chance that Michael W. Smith starred in, and Michael caught wind of the fact that I had lost funding for my documentary, and said, "Hey, when we get done with The Second Chance filming, let's talk." And we talked, and he saw a kind of a teaser that I'd put together, and he said, "Give me a few days," and he called me back on Monday and said, "Let's make history, bro." And so...
Was Steve involved in this film at all? Steve
Taylor was there from the very beginning. He's an associate producer on this project and has been one of my biggest supporters emotionally through the whole thing. And so Steve's been there from the beginning.
One of the things, we were having lunch together, and I did not know or had not put together that you had worked with Second Chance at all. And I told you, I brought up, that this is a great movie. It's one of the best Christians, most realistic depictions of inner city church I've ever seen on film. And I did not know that you had a role in that. But you co-wrote that, or you
co-wrote that with Steve and Henry O. Arnold, who co-wrote the book with me here, and then did the cinematography for the film.
Okay.
Yeah, and was also a co-producer. But yeah, that was it was a wonderful experience.
What are some other experiences you have related to film and writing that we need to be aware of?
Well, currently, Steve and I and Don Miller have co-authored the new script for Blue Light Jazz.
Okay, wow.
And Steve is in the process of trying to find funding right now for that. Which is always an interesting experience.
One of the things I want to do out of that book, I try to get the River Festival here in town to do it. As I've always wanted to do a reverse confession booth.
Oh.
And we're going to do one, whether the city lets us or not.
Right.
We're going to do one.
That's
great. Outlined in that book.
Yeah. That's it.
Tell us about the Afghan people. What's your experiences?
Well, when I went to do my initial interviews, it was August, September of 2003, and at that time, of course, that was the autumn before we went into Iraq. So there was a real climate of hope there, and anticipation that as a country we would follow through with our promises. And I was greeted, and I'd be walking down the street and somebody would hear about what I was doing, and they would shake my hand and tell your country thanks for retaliating, and we're so glad the Taliban's not in power anymore. And I think what happened, when we went into Iraq, we got a bit sidetracked, and so now I think there's hope starting to come back in that we will follow through. We've never really followed through with our promises of assisting, and
probably back through even with the Carter administration, with when the Soviets were
exactly. So I guess my hope and prayers are that we actually do follow through, and but we'll see. It's a very, very difficult situation. I felt that when I was there that we had a golden opportunity. This country had a golden opportunity to really, from start to finish, make a statement which would be remembered, for generations there. And that didn't happen. So hopefully we can get back in now with this current administration and set things on the right course again.
Do you have a sense that the Afghan people have hope with this administration?
I haven't been there
since the administration, right?
Yeah, but from what I've heard, there's hope starting to come back. Okay. Yeah, that something will be followed. Tell us about the
workers, their experiences. What precipitated? Because I don't know if people. One of the great things I think about the story is it gives us an insight into what went on that we may not be aware of.
Yeah, that's true. And the fact that when the 8 Westerners were taken, that also 16 of their employees at Shelter Now were taken, those employees were all Muslim.
Yeah.
And they were accused of taking money from the head of Shelter Now, George Taubman, to convert others to Christianity, which they never did. The Taliban were so sure that there was no way that Shelter Now would have hired these Muslim workers, and that they wouldn't have converted to Christianity. They just couldn't comprehend the fact that an organization like Shelter Now would actually hire Muslim employees and not require them to change their beliefs. And so the employees actually suffered more physical torture and mental abuse than I think even the Westerners did. But through this whole situation, people within the prisons, people within the forced Taliban, people that were forced to serve the Taliban, started seeing the injustice of this whole situation and started to help the Westerners, and they would pass notes back and forth between the women who were kept in a separate area of the prison than the men. So there was communications, and these were Muslims that were helping Christians because they saw the injustices that was being done to these Western Christians.
In the West, we don't always hear that. We have so much, it seems like, press and individuals that talk, and then they're driving a wedge between Muslim or people that follow Islamic beliefs and Christians. Mm-hmm. And the reality of it is, here's a situation where actually Muslims were there trying to advocate for and help Westerners. Yeah,
and I think that's one of the main things that captured me about the story. When I started hearing those kind of bits of information, I was like fascinated. Yeah. And it's when tyranny rises at its ugly head. Humanity seems to find a way to help each other, and that was regardless of beliefs, So that was kind of a through line to the whole story for me.
One of the things we've tried to do at Hollywood Jesus is not per se to promote or proselytize, I guess was what some people would say. We've tried to find places where we can find common ground. Mm-hmm. Is there hope that wedge and that rift between people of Islam or Muslims and Christians, that they can find a common ground to bring about a better world? Or what's your thoughts on that?
Well, I always think there's hope in that aspect of life that people can see through the spin that governments put on things or the spin that the press puts on things. I think this story is very much about that hope. Mm-hmm. And it's surprising. To have granted he was forced to serve the Taliban, but to have a working Taliban officer smuggle in a GPS phone so the U.S. government knew where not to bomb, where the hostages were being held. That's an amazing thing.
It's an amazing thing, yeah.
Yeah.